Steve Martin.
Pardon me? You know, it's not the size of a nose that's important, it's what's in it that matters.
And Daryl Hannah.
Maybe you'd like some wine with your nose. Cheese.
I am, and I will always be, the one who loved you without limits.
A Man, a Woman and a Nose. Roxanne, tonight at 9:15 on BBC One.
This is BBC One for the Midlands. Very good afternoon. Now the regional news and weather. The Vice-Chancellor and Principal of Birmingham University has been knighted in the New Year's Honours List. Professor Michael Thompson's honour is the highest awarded to anyone in the Midlands. Among the others are Peter Shilton, the Derby goalkeeper, who's been elevated from MBE to OBE. The award comes at the end of a year in which he retired from international football with a record number of England caps. Wayne Shelford, the Northampton rugby player, who used to captain the All Blacks, is made an MBE. And there's a British Empire medal for Jackie Cashmore, the Warwickshire woman who runs the National Canine Defence League Rescue Centre at Honolulu. The BBC broadcaster Dennis McCarthy is made an MBE, a former Midlands Today presenter. He's well known throughout the East Midlands. For the afternoon programme, he presents on 4 different BBC local radio stations. A new law which gives councils the power to prosecute supermarkets over abandoned trolleys has been launched in the Midlands today. It also means local authorities will be able to charge stores for retrieving their trolleys. David Holdsworth now reports.
Piles of abandoned trolleys are recovered from canals and wasteland throughout the region every week, creating an eyesore and threatening wildlife. British Waterways say it's their biggest single pollution problem. The new law was outlined by a Midlands MP and Environment Minister on a visit to a superstore near Solihull.
I think that many people have found abandoned trolleys in town centres, in high streets, in car parks, a nuisance. No one's taken responsibility for them. They get vandalised, they get dumped in canals, they're a danger to cars and to blind people, they're just a hassle.
From tomorrow, it will be up to stores to make sure their trolleys are not stolen. Otherwise, they could be facing a big bill.
In Nottinghamshire, conservationists are reporting a 90% increase in the number of swans on the River Trent. The British Trust for Ornithology says there are now 364 swans on the river, largely thanks to a ban on anglers using lead weights on their lines. The Mini car is making a comeback with production levels at their highest for 10 years. Rover manufactured around 50,000 at its Longbridge plant this year, beating the downward trend across nearly all the motor industry. Once the swinging symbol of the 1960s, Minis are now made mostly for export, with nearly half this year's models going to Japan. Finally, the chimes of Big Ben will ring in the new year in Birmingham city centre tonight. The bells of the Museum and Art Gallery clock, which are traditionally rung, have been silenced by engineering work. So BBC Radio WM is relaying the sound of Big Ben to Chamberlain Square instead. And wherever you're celebrating, have a good time tonight. Midlands Today is next at 6:15. Hope you can join us then. But now for a look at the weather forecast. Mostly cloudy this afternoon with showers, prolonged and heavy in places. A few sunny intervals are also likely though. The top temperature 7 degrees Celsius. Clearing tonight with a low of about freezing.
In 10 minutes, our lunchtime visit to the Neighbours. That's after the news now with Andrew Harvey.
Good afternoon. Luxembourg's foreign minister says he expects to go to Baghdad for peace talks with the Iraqis. Luxembourg takes over the presidency of the European Community tonight, and its first action will be to hold an emergency meeting on Friday to discuss the Gulf crisis.
The European Community foreign ministers are being asked to walk a delicate tightrope. How best to pursue a new independent initiative while avoiding sending a signal to Baghdad that the Allies are divided. At their meeting on Friday, they'll hear that diplomatic efforts must be renewed, a last chance for peace. With that in mind, they're expected to agree that Luxembourg's foreign minister should go to Baghdad. He'll probably tell Iraq that it must leave Kuwait or face the consequences. But afterwards, there could be talks on the Palestinian question, the future shape of Israel's border, and security in the Gulf. The Iraqi foreign minister, Tariq Aziz, may well see it as a carrot before the stick is used, and the linkage of issues Iraq has been calling for. If all goes to plan, he'll probably meet for talks with Luxembourg's foreign minister within 10 days, when the European community's message will be delivered.
I will say to him that he has to fulfill without any restraint the United Nations Resolution 678. No partial solution, no new delay, and after this, the way will be open for discussing other questions of the Middle East.
The Foreign Secretary, Douglas Hurd, is likely to urge caution at Friday's meeting, not wanting the EC to look as though it's offering Saddam Hussein a deal. His views may not be shared by others, though, as Europe tries to keep the door to talks open in what may be the final days before war. Jonathan Charles, BBC News, Brussels.
A building worker from Northern Ireland who's been freed from prison in Iraq hopes to return home by the end of the week. Brian Duffy was arrested for trying to flee the country, but he's been released after serving just a month of a one-year sentence.
It was at 8 o'clock last night that Brian Duffy reached the Irish embassy here and the certainty of release. He'd been unlucky, caught trying to escape 4 months ago, sent for trial when his fellow escapers were sent to military installations as part of the Human Shield because they were British, sentenced to a year's imprisonment the day before they and all the other hostages were declared free. Yesterday afternoon, Brian Duffy's luck finally turned.
I think that moment was the closest I came to tears in 4 months. I was overwhelmed. I said, yes, it really is happening, because I was resigned to serving out the sentence, which would have meant being released 31st of May.
12 days ago, Brian Duffy's colleagues from Northern Ireland, all hostages who'd been working on Saddam Hussein's new palace, were allowed to leave Iraq. Tomorrow, he'll be on his way to join them. John Simpson, BBC News, Baghdad.
A Northern Ireland MP, Seamus Mallon, has called for an independent inquiry into why soldiers shot dead an unarmed man in South Armagh yesterday. He said it was a shoot-to-kill incident. The Northern Ireland Security Minister, Lord Belstead, said he regretted the shooting and promised a full and impartial investigation.
The focus is now on the police investigation of the incident, and today an RUC team was flown into Cullyhanna to begin their examination of the scene. Detectives will be interviewing the soldiers in the patrol which fired on the Carraher brothers' car, and the RUC has appealed for witnesses. Few politicians have reservations when the army kill armed men, terrorists, but there's always controversy after incidents like this, when unarmed men are shot dead. The MP for the area has already said he wants an independent investigation. He says the local security forces shouldn't investigate other security forces.
We are informed already this morning that the same soldiers are back on duty in South Armagh. Now that shows an absolute disdain for the community there and the sensitivities of the community. And not just that, but surely it prejudices and prejudges the investigation which is taking place.
The police investigation now taking place will establish the facts and in an impartial and objective manner, and a full report will be made to the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Local people from Cullyhanna, including Francis Carraher, a brother of the man shot dead, say soldiers fired on the car which had not, as the army said last night, failed to stop at a checkpoint, and they deny that the vehicle hit two of the troops.
Two of Britain's best-known novelists are included in the New Year's Honours List published today. The crime writer P.D. James becomes a life peer, while Barbara Cartland is made a dame.
P.D. James has made her fictional detective Adam Dalgleish a household name. Her thrillers have earned her the title Queen of Crime. Now she has a new title.
I am both honoured and delighted. As far as plans are concerned, of course, it's very, very early days. I shall take my seat in the Lords, and I would like to try to make a contribution there, if I can.
Among the 29 knighthoods, Paul Fox, the managing director of BBC Television, and Peregrine Worsthorne of the Sunday Telegraph. The heart transplant surgeon, Terence English, has also been made a knight, along with the chief executive of Eurotunnel, Alistair Morton. Someone else who's faced a good deal of controversy, the chief constable of Greater Manchester, James Anderton, is another new knight. There's something to brighten the gloom of England's test performance in Australia, an OBE for Captain Graham Gooch. The racing driver Nigel Mansell also gets an OBE, along with the former England goalkeeper Peter Shilton. The same honour goes to the boxing commentator Harry Carpenter. And Bobby Robson, who took England to the World Cup, becomes a CBE. Political honours go to 3 Conservative MPs, Richard Luce, Timothy Raisin and Tony Durant. All become knights, as does the former Labour and then SDP MP Ian Wrigglesworth. Another new knight is the actor Ian McKellen, currently touring with the Royal National Theatre's contemporary production of Richard III. There's a CBE for the actor Marius Goring and an OBE for the TV presenter Esther Ranson. The author and academic Malcolm Bradbury has become a CBE, and the doyenne of romantic fiction, 89-year-old Barbara Cartland, becomes a dame.
I could not have had it if I hadn't had the help of the press. It's been the media that's helped me with all my campaigns. Of course they take the mickey out of me because I wear pink and a few things like that. When I have anything serious, they've always come in and helped.
Finally, the Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square has been made safe after a man cut through part of the trunk with a chainsaw last night. Tree surgeons removed the lower section of the trunk in time for tonight's New Year celebrations in the square. A man has been charged. And that's all for now. The next news is on BBC One at 6 o'clock.
Good afternoon, Juno. Let up in the stormy, unsettled weather, I think, in the next few days. We've got an area of low pressure at the moment. As that moves out of the way, more fronts are going to rush in from the Atlantic. Quite a scattering of showers across the country at the moment, especially over England and Wales, even some snow in the hillier areas in the north, but somewhat brighter weather will feed across from the west as time goes on, and Scotland, Northern Ireland keeping a fair number of those wintry showers running in on the fairly stiff southwesterly winds, a bit on the cold side in those northern parts, especially with the snow. Now this evening, as those showers die out, the sky's clear, do watch out for some ice on the roads, especially in central and eastern areas. Those showers keeping going in those northwestern and western parts, and late on in the night the showers being replaced in Northern Ireland and the far southwest there by more general cloud and outbreaks of rain. But to begin with, at least, temperatures dropping back to around about freezing, especially in many central and eastern areas, and then later on in the night, temperatures beginning to rise from the west. And then tomorrow, after a dry and bright start in many central and eastern parts, we are going to find wet and windy weather sweeping across most parts of the country, a bit brighter perhaps later on in the north.
On BBC2 in a moment, Jonathan Dimbleby is looking back over the events of 1990 with a review of the year from key locations around the world.
Programmes for New Year's Eve on BBC1. At 6:30, Mike Smith's The Name, That's Show Business The Game. Then at 7, the silver-tongued man from the bush looks back at his best guests of 1990. Pike's in a Pickle at 7:30 in Dad's Army.
Don't you move a muscle, or you'll get blown to Kingdom Come!
At 8, a special New Year's Eve, May to December.
Don't you care having a son with a criminal record?
No, as long as you don't play it in the office.
At 9:15, the network television premiere of Steve Martin's Roxanne.
I almost never let this moment happen. I have breathed you in.
I want to make love to you. Shut up, Chris!
What? Stand by for the real story about 1990. 12 months that have been called the most exciting year since 1989. The old year is history, and you will be there.
Following the chimes of Big Ben at midnight, there's a message for the new year from the Archbishop of Canterbury. With the film Carry On England at 10 past midnight, it's into the new year with BBC One.
Now on One, let's find out what's happened to Nick in Neighbours.